Hello to all Gold viewers from around the world. I'm Kristen Schwartz, licensed midwife and one of the MCs here at Gold. And here at Gold, we are very excited about our new upcoming symposiums here for the early years. And with me here is one of our speakers, Reyner. Welcome, Anna.
Thank you so much, Kristen. It's great to be here.
Oh, it's so lovely to have you here. Yes, you are speaking at our upcoming symposium here. We want to know more about that in just a minute. But before we go there, I want to ask you, first of all, where in the world are you?
I am in Los Angeles, California, better known as City of Angels. It sounds so much nicer that way.
Oh, I love that. City of Angels. Yeah, it's a beautiful name. Beautiful name. So thank you for sharing that. Because as you know, Anna, we have an international audience, and this is what I love so much here, that we can be with passionate professionals from all around the world, learning together, learning with each other and from each other, from our expert speakers just like you. So tell us a little bit about your background here before we get into the presentation itself.
Sure. Oh, my goodness. Where do you start? Well, I have been an art person. I like to say that an art person. I'm an art therapist. I'm an art teacher. I'm an artist. I'm an art person in every way. And I have been an art person all my life. And the topic that we're talking about today is trauma-informed art. And as an art therapist, that's, kind of what art therapy is all about, working with social, emotional issues, mental health issues through the vehicle of art. And, I come by that field through my own personal experience as a child, and where art really did save my life in a very specific way. And art was the one thing that I liked to do. It was the one thing that calmed me down, from a family, as many of us do, with a lot of chaos. And art was really, honestly, what did save me. And so I developed my whole life around the process of enjoying art in so many ways. So I've worked with children, I've worked with adults, I've worked abroad in Central America. I lived in Central America for 5 years and developed an art program there when I didn't speak a word of Spanish, which was what everyone around me was speaking, but little I learned Spanish. But I really learned that art is a vehicle for communication that spans cultures and language.
Yes, absolutely. Oh, I love this, Anna, so much. You took your own childhood experience, the love for art, and then turned it into a vehicle to help others and train other care providers in, as well as, parents, work with children. I think this is absolutely fantastic. And yeah, we hear about the healing properties of art and how it changes also the brain, right? I mean, there are studies out there that when you are involved in doing art or scribbling or just being in your moment, in your zone, so to speak, and that's for children as well as for adults, the brain changes, right? And something just magically happened there. And I love how you took this and turned it into a vehicle of therapy. And that is just so magical and beautiful to me. So I loved how you described that.
Thank you, Kristen. Yeah, it really does. It really does change the brain. It lowers cortisol levels. There's all these studies that have been done with dopamine and your amygdala. There's so much science to it. There's a lot of fancy terms, but in a simple way, whether you know the fancy terms that neuroscientists tell us, and you can read about all those. It's real science. But whether you choose to study that or not, you can feel the effects of it yourself as you do calm down. If you spend some time immersing yourself, getting into your body, where you're really physical, you're really stirring your sensory elements. You're stirring the touch, the visual, the components of color, and moving your body physically. You really will feel the effects of that calm.
Beautiful. And you mentioned also you went to, South America and worked there without knowing Spanish in the beginning, and saying that art is really, bridges languages. It's a way of communication. And isn't that so true for children, especially, right? I mean, especially we work with children maybe that are, not verbal, or very little ones who, are not, able to express themselves with words yet. But they can express themselves. And we see these little ones so creatively and fully immersed in their art. When you look at little tiny children, they are the art, right? They're not just, they become one with what they're doing, right, Anna?
Oh, that's a good way of putting it. They do become one with what they're doing. I love the way you said that. It is so true. You become so immersed in the process when it's working. It doesn't happen all the time, but it happens often. You get so immersed in the process that time stands still, and it's as if you don't even know what's going on around you. I have some pictures that people will see in the presentation we do today, where I'm literally standing over a child with my cell phone, taking a picture of them. And they don't even know that I'm there. It's like they're oblivious to me. And I've captured some beautiful pictures of children, all with I'm careful to get all the release forms from
Right.
the schools to do that. But I've captured some amazing pictures of children immersed in the process, and you'll see them today where
Yes.
I'm literally standing right there.
Amazing. And we had a little sneak peek here at Gold about your, the presentation. You bring in some beautiful videos. By the way, the presentation is titled Trauma-Informed Art Activities for Early Childhood Using Processed Art to Repair Trauma and Help Children Thrive. And this is exactly what you will be talking about. And not only are you showing videos and beautiful pictures, but you also get us involved, right? I brought my little pencils here, my little crayons and my papers. So I'm ready. I'm ready to learn
because it's doing something fun and easy.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And we see this. I have to ask you this because I keep thinking about it. Because it's like when it comes to art, and at one point, when you're little tiny children, they're very immersed. They don't care what they're doing. As you mentioned, they even forget that you are there. But there comes a point, and I don't know when exactly that happens. And you, as the childhood expert, can tell me that when it's not so much more about the actual time of doing the process, but more about the outcome. And I have to tell you, this is like something where I'm like thinking a lot about, because many of us adults, when you ask us to draw something and we're not artists, we always like, oh, I can't do this. I'm not good at art. And we beat ourselves up if we're in one of those little art drawing workshops and things like that. When does this start? And what can we do? I feel like this is like a big thing that can help us, if we don't have this hang up about doing art, and help children not to get that hang up too.
It's so beautifully said, Kristen. I'm so glad that you are the person asking me these questions, because obviously you have a very well developed sensitivity to what art is and for children, and when it kind of stops being so spontaneous. And usually around age 8, there's developmental. It's not, developmental process. It always progresses, with some variation between children, but globally it's around 8 that children become critical about their art and start thinking it doesn't look right, or they start caring about what others think about it. And that's something that's not germane only to the art process. It's part of their process as people, as humans, that they began becoming critical of everything they do, and more aware of how they fit in, how they belong. And, it's the latency period. It's the, as puberty is beginning to approach, and then adolescence, and, everything changes as we evolve and individuate as, going through childhood, adolescence, and into adulthood. But again, age 8 is when it typically happens. And then on top of that, I think a lot of art teachers, because art is one of those topics in schools that is so, that it's been, funded, it's been defunded out of the curriculum for so many decades, and so it's become just a specialized thing that's technique oriented.
Yes.
And in most cases, and so children learn that, they learn to do perspectives, how to draw realistically, and so as adults you end up thinking, if I can't draw, I'm not an artist. And I've heard that a million times. I can't draw. I'm not an artist. I can't draw. And what they mean is, I can't draw realistically. Could they do drawings like this? Probably.
Beautiful.
That's my job to show them how. Because most adults, if I say, oh, now take a piece of paper, they're thinking, I can't draw. I'm not an artist. But they're thinking, I can't draw a portrait that looks like my mother. I can't draw a house that looks like my house. But they're not thinking, oh, I could draw that.
Mhm.
That's my job, to teach them that art really is not, number one, is so much of it's not just about drawing. It's about spraying paint and throwing paint and feeling things. It's about getting your senses involved in color, texture, form,
Yes.
and abstraction. See this thing
Yes.
behind me?
Yes, it's
Oh,
beautiful. I love it.
thank you. That anyone can do, and I can show you how. And, probably you'll say, I can't believe I did that. Well, because art teachers weren't teaching that back
Right.
when you were young.
Right, absolutely. And I like how you describe it as a sensory experience. And that's where it becomes so valuable, especially for the early childhood period and what you will be talking about, the trauma-informed art activities, right? Tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, the trauma-informed piece is so critically important, especially today as we kind of moving through hopefully the final phases of the COVID pandemic, or at least we've been through the initial acute phases when we had no idea what was going on.
Right.
And children who are young children, which, generally we define early childhood is actually formally defined as ages 0 to 8.
Mm-hmm.
At least in the United States, that's how it's defined. And so when you're working with children in a school setting, typically children, when they're infants, they're not doing art. So usually by the time children can grasp 2 or 3, they're doing some kind of sensory play in art. And the children that are growing up in today's world have only known the pandemic world, which is a world of great trauma. It's what we call now universal trauma. So trauma-informed art can be many different things. It can be somebody who needs to have an intervention by a child psychologist, a play therapist, an art therapist, their pediatrician, that needs to have a formal intervention because they have something severe going on. And that certainly exists, and it always has existed. And that's what we used to call trauma. Children who have lived through an earthquake, children who have seen their parents shot in front of them, children who have been locked in the closet from neglect or locked in the basement. We hear these tragic stories, we read about them. And that's what we used to think trauma was. And that is a tier 1 level of trauma, and it still exists. But that's not the trauma that teachers are going to deal with. The trauma that they're dealing with and can successfully make a difference with is universal trauma. And that's kind of a new term. Universal trauma is a term that, in the US anyway, it's a term that was defined by the Department of Education as universal trauma. Back in 1920, I think they defined that and started saying all schools need to address universal trauma with prevention and strategies to help children move through the crisis of the pandemic, which is a community trauma that we've all lived with. So that's what art can really help with. And most teachers have never thought about that. They were never trained to think about it. It doesn't even occur to them. Why would it? It's not, that's the work of an art therapist. And you think, okay, I'm going to bridge the gap between education and mental health, and art can do that.
Universal trauma. I really, that term really speaks to me, and it really describes really well what is going on. And hey, I mean, really, Anna, we need an art therapist in every school, right? I mean, there needs to be somebody like you in every school to work with these children, or every preschool as well. That would be absolutely fantastic, because I do believe a lot of work needs to be done, right? There's a lot of work to be done, but so much good could come out of this, right?
Yeah, and your art supplies are already there. All preschools, kindergarten, the early years, all the grades, they all have crayons. I don't think I've ever seen a classroom that didn't have paper and crayons. And they usually have some other things too. They usually have some watercolors. They usually have some clay. They usually have some construction paper and pom-poms and craft sticks and things that they can build, 3-dimensional structures with, because they tie those things in with their other curriculum sometimes. But they need to be able to learn to use those same materials therapeutically to move through some of the energy, the locked in energy, the freeze, the flight, the neurological, the sensory overload that children have from living in the pandemic. And imagine growing up where everything is about, don't touch this, don't do that. Did you wear your mask? Did you cough on that person? Did they cough on you? Let's get the hand sanitizer. And don't leave now because dad has COVID. We have to
Mhm.
stay inside. This is a world that children have no
Yeah.
idea really how to begin to understand that. So
Yes.
helping them move through some of those things that are locked inside or coming out, they're biting, they're hitting, they're afraid. They're either blocked in or acting out.
Mhm.
And art can help move some of that energy around, help them calm down, and help them connect to the people around them, but only if people know how to really see it as a language and
Mm.
not a decoration. You don't want to just be saying, oh, that's so pretty, you're such
Right.
an artist. That's what you don't want to be saying. You want to say, let me see what you did. I want to know more about you.
Beautiful. Anna, I have to tell you, I can't wait for your presentation. It sounds absolutely fabulous. And you're really showing us hands-on activities and, how to talk to children as well, as you just mentioned, so you're giving us really actual tools to take into our schools, into our learning centers, and or to the parents we work with as well. So thank you so much for coming here today and also speaking at Gold. It's been a pleasure having you here today, Anna.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure too.
And for our viewers now, this presentation is part of our Early Years Learning Symposium here at Gold. And the presentations will be available on September 25th. We also have a live keynote presentation. If you would like to find out more about this wonderful presentation and all the other presentations in the symposium, we would like to invite you to go to goldlearning.com. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Thank you, and bye-bye. Bye-bye, Anna.